All right, everybody. How you guys doing tonight? All right. Let's get settled in here. If everybody can hear me okay so far, it's on the live stream. Just post up. Let me know you can hear me clearly. That there's no distortion. Any problems listening to PBH on this wonderful Wednesday night, our 5th episode of our live stream, which is going very, very well, I may add. Had a lot of fun doing it so far. At first, I was a little apprehensive of doing it, but you know, I've been on plenty of live streams with and podcasts with other guys, and this has been really, it's been good. A lot more fun than I thought going into it. So I want to thank you guys for participating. Make sure, if you're new to our channel, if you're a Coyote Swap enthusiast, first time listening in, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification button. When you hit the notification button, make sure you hit the all. That way you don't miss any of our live streams, any of our updates, any product announcements, tech stuff that we do, which we have plenty in the works, and we have a lot of updates to products coming up. Tonight's topic that I'm going to talk about at length is going to be control packs and exactly what they are, what they're designed to do for you, what are the advantages of doing it that way, and the components they come with, and then maybe the components that you need to make sure you have everything you need if you're using a control pack, as far as engine harnesses, transmission harnesses, you know, what you're going to get out of your control pack as far as signals, and what it's really what its job is in the Coyote swap, and so forth. Before we get to that, I will tell you that today was another really cool day of being an employee here at Power by the Hour. The Whipple Gen 5 did arrive today, and we did our test fit with our speed drive brackets and did some belt fitment stuff. Took some pictures of it. It looks awesome. It looks like another solid blower from Whipple. We've done them before on the 18 and up cars with Lethal Performance, and it looks solid. You know, the power steering solution is going to be just as good as it's been with any of our other setups, NA, SC. We do have something else in the works as far as a big option that's going to be available for the speed drives coming up soon. I can't really release too much information about it just yet, but I did get a chance to test fit another component that's going to be part of our speed drive today, and my coupe will be coming in soon enough to get that component added to my speed drive on my race car to test it out and see how it handles RPMs, autocross, that kind of stuff. So there'll be another update, like a lot of our products, soon. The 3-valve harness is on its way to manufacturing. At manufacturing, we got a chance to finally do a final test on Christian's 3-valve car, and that was successful. No problems that we anticipated. Everything worked out really, really good. As far as, if you don't know who Christian is, Christian's one of our sales guys, a member of our team. He's got a salvaged '08 Bullet that's been repainted black and made to look like Barricade with Celine body kit and everything. And we did a Gen 1 Coyote swap with an F-150 motor in it. It's got some clutch problems right now he's getting figured out. Once those are done, the car's up for sale. So if you're in the market for a finished Celine Bullet black Coyote swap GT, it's got a lot of cool goodies on it. It's got the Bullet dashboard in it. It's got the Celine body kit, Celine wheels. It's got the 3650 transmission. That car is going to be for sale from him. I think he's going to be looking for like 14 grand for that car. And it's fresh. I mean, it's just been done. It's going to have our harness already in it, gauge is working, AC, everything. So it works out really nice. So if you guys are interested in something like that, if you know somebody interested in something like that, let them know about it. But Let's say hello to some people here. Kimbo Slice, Root Beer, John W., Orlando Chavez, Wild Chicken, Bobby Wortman, a lot of the regular players here. It's Enzo Lorenzo. Thanks for checking in, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start off by talking about control packs. And control packs have really only been available to us for what's relatively a short time period in the performance industry. The first Ford Racing control pack that we got our hands on was for the Cobra Jets, the 07, 08, 09 GT500 Cobra Jets, where they released a wiring PCM control pack, control module, to allow you to run that engine, a GT500 engine, with a stock computer, with basically a dumbed down stock engine harness. It was built with all factory wiring, connectors. It was really simplifying something that we had been doing with the 4.6 cars and older Windsors and stuff. So control packs kind of started there. They ended up with a 3-valve version because of all the 3-valve FR500 race cars, which were the Mustang Challenge cars. And then we got the Coyote. And starting in Gen 1, 11 to 14, Gen 2, 15 to 17, Gen 3 now, 18 and up. The formula really hasn't changed. It's kind of been perfected. And we've thrown our hat in the ring because in Gen 1 we wanted a 6R80 control pack, and it wasn't something they were planning on doing, so we made our own, which is the body harness that we offer. So the main components of a control pack are PCM, body harness, O2 sensors, mass airflow meter, gas pedal, and then some of the years have different neutral safety switches and stuff like that for manual. You're also going to get PCV hoses, an air box, and radiator hoses, upper and lower, which is a nice rounded setup. A lot of those components, even if you get a used vehicle, they're cracked, dry rotted, used up, and snipped off by the junkyard in a wreck. You know, the air box sometimes doesn't make it. But really, the purpose of the control pack is to deliver to the end user an easy way to perform an engine swap and still keep all the factory control of the engine, the logic, the calibration that Ford puts a lot of time into. And I think in the automatic versions, where it's a 6R80 or a 10R80, it's more valuable than it is maybe with a manual or an independently controlled transmission. I think you get more benefit at that point with the 6R80s because there is so much logic involved in making sure a 6R80 shifts right. Same with a 10R80. Now they're kind of listed a little bit screwed up. You know, Ford will tell you this one's for a manual and this one's for an automatic 6R80. Really, it's either a control pack for a 6R80 or 10R80 or anything else. So the manual control packs are really for anything other than the factory automatic option for a Coyote engine of that generation. So if you're dealing with a Gen 2 control pack and you have a 6R80, you're getting a 6R80 control pack. If you have anything other than a 6R80, you're getting the other control pack. It's not because it's a manual, it's because you're not using a 6R80. So if you're using a 470W, a C4, C6 for a Turbo 400, Power Glide, you're really considered to be a manual control pack. But again, the purpose of it is to deliver the same calibration and communication through the whole powertrain, the powertrain control, that you get in a factory car. So the expectation is high. Since I'm using a stock computer, the expectation should be it's going to drive like a stock car. There really is no weird things that are supposed to happen. It's not supposed to be able to do a burnout. Then you have to shut it off to launch it down the drag strip. They shouldn't be stalling at every light. It would be that this vehicle is going to drive just like the F-150 I drive to work every day or the Mustang that I have on the weekends. And what's nice about that, since it is a stock computer, You can use the same calibration tools that are available for all the stock vehicles, all the supercharger options. Everything's out there for you. Once it's figured out, because there are some different calibration changes that Ford applies to the factory Coyote computers. As an example, they shut off a lot of the things that will trigger check engine lights or diagnostic trouble codes when you run a computer without having all the body module and all the communication going on. If you use a stock computer and just shut the pads off, there's probably going to be a slew of codes that need to be shut off in your custom calibration when you get it finished. But in a control pack environment, in control pack PCM, they're going to be delivering you a PCM that has its own calibration specifically for an engine swap, so they've went through and shut all those things off. That's why adding cruise control to a Coyote swapped control packed car is a little bit of a problem, because the cruise control functions are zeroed out of the stock computer where they would be there from the factory. If you had a factory PCM, it's more of an option, but it's not the easiest thing to do because of the way the switches work. So it's just an example, but a lot of those functions are gone. That's why when you plug into it, you're probably not seeing a bunch of codes like fuel tank codes and evap codes that you then have to ask your tuner to shut off. They're already zeroed out for you because it's kind of a racing part, off-road part. That being said, it's easier to use in that situation versus ripping all your wiring out and trying to redo it all. Using a standalone computer in some cases is an option. I've had a lot of guys consider control packs to be standalones, and they're not really standalone computers, even though they kind of operate somewhat like it. The operating system, whether in a standalone you're either dealing with Holley or Fuel Tech or any of the other companies that are out there, that's their programming. Instead, you're using Ford factory programming. So it's got a lot more logic built into it. Everything that the Ford computer was designed to do is in there, and it gives you a big head start. A lot of guys I know fire them up and drive them. Some of you don't tune them, which you really should tune them, unless they're very, very close to stock. But in a standalone situation, and I don't want to overspeak on the standalone stuff, there's going to be some workarounds that you have to figure out. You're not going to get that big of a head start calibration-wise like you do with a factory computer. And whoever's on the keyboard, which in most cases is the end user, has total control over the engine and the transmission. And unless you're that kind of guy that has that stuff figured out, you could end up either hurting the powertrain or having a lot of frustrating evenings or times at the track, that kind of stuff, with a standalone computer versus a control pack. So I think there's a really good place for standalone controllers and standalone computers, and they really kind of tend to lean towards the racing side of things where you can make changes on the fly. Not that you can't do that stuff with a stock computer, because there's products out there like HP Tuners that allows you to tune your own vehicle. There's calibrators out there like Lund Racing that'll give you all the trackside support you need if you schedule things and can get your setup figured out. But if you need pass by pass, eking out every single change that possibly could be done, a standalone probably might be what you want to go with, but just be forewarned. They're usually not up to par with what a factory computer can deliver to you in the framework of the tuning. And you're going to be the reason why it succeeds or the reason why it fails. The tuning is really going to be there, and that correlates to even control packs, because you have to provide the information in a car that's built properly to a calibrator like Lund Racing for them to be successful to help you out. So that's something to consider when it comes to control packs. Control packs, price-wise, really are not out of the stratosphere in pricing compared to standalone computers out there. There is no control pack that controls just the 6R80 as an example. So if you need to put a 6R80 behind something that's not a Coyote motor, there's going to be standalones out there for you to do that with. You're not going to be using a control pack that's designed to work a Coyote engine with a 6R80 behind it. So control packs really fit, I would say, 90% of the builds that are out there in delivering what you need for your build to be successful, for it to work. Gen 1, 2, and 3, like I said, are available. PBH has a body harness that is separate from the control pack, which is something Ford Racing does not do. You get every single component of control pack, whether you need just the body harness or not. So if you are planning on doing a Coyote swap, consider that when you're buying used power plants, is that if you're buying a used powertrain for something that a control pack is available for, but you're getting a computer, O2 sensors, a mass airflow meter, a gas pedal, all these things from the donor vehicle, the only thing you need is the body harness. If it's not a Gen 1, you're going to end up having to buy a complete control pack to get what you need, and the mound of parts that you have duplicates of or waste parts is just going to keep growing. And you can keep them as spares, and you can sell them as used equipment online. There's a couple different outlets to do that, but it doesn't change the fact that you're going to spend about $1,600 to $1,800 on the control pack to get what you need to do it, to finish it. So keep that in mind as you're budgeting for your builds, that if you're going to go with a crank pallet or a donor vehicle, if it's a Gen 2 or a Gen 3, there's no easy way out of getting just the body harness. You end up looking at getting a whole control pack. Bobby Wortman says, yeah, a lot of duplicate parts. So keep that in mind as you're planning. Tuning, yes, they're delivering you a computer that has all the factory logic in it, but you really should budget to have it custom tuned. And when it comes to tuning, there's a lot of tuners out there. There's a lot of tuning software out there. You got to do your due diligence. You got to make sure the guy you're working with, or the calibrator in particular working with, has experience with your combination, not just Mustangs, because it is a little bit different. And there's different variables, especially when we're doing a swap, that are going to make it unique when you're doing Coyote swap tuning versus a stock 15 to 17 Mustang. If you call somewhere and say, hey, it's basically a 15, 17 Mustang, the guy goes, oh yeah, I can get that because he has access to that software or that tune through whatever software he's using. He may have an uphill battle to make your car whole, and who ends up hurting is you, because you may end up going round and round with somebody and end up not with a tune that you're happy with, and you're still trying to get it finished up. Definitely do your due diligence. Ask the people in the Coyote swap community. Call us. Call your calibrator. Make contact with them, however they choose to be contacted. Just because a guy doesn't have a phone number and you can't pick up the phone and call him like it's a hotline doesn't mean he can't do a great job tuning for you. You're going to have to bend a little bit when it comes to that stuff, because the days of going to the corner dyno or speed shop for all your tuning and carburetor and calibration needs has changed. Reason being, all the calibration is changing by the day. New calibrations, new combinations, and the chance that that guy is getting the opportunity to tune all these combinations and storing that knowledge into himself and then being able to deliver it to you and duplicate the success from car to car, it's hard to do because you need a lot of repetitions to be able to develop that calibration. You need to go out and buy cars and drive them and work on those tunes. I think we've covered it, in posts before and videos before. Firms may spend upwards of $100,000 to learn a calibration for one of the models that we're trying to swap into a Fox body. And if you don't spend that time and develop that stuff, and you're working off of the framework of what the tuning is available you to buy and have access to, you're probably not going to have access to all the things that you need to properly tune the vehicle. So again, do your homework. There's known quantities out there that you can pick from. If you're working with somebody local, make sure that they've done this before, or they clarify to you that they haven't done it before. So if you do decide to go tuning with them, you know that you have to have patience and let them try to figure things out for you. Dyno numbers aren't the end all be all of Coyote swapping a car. The magic of the tuning is in making sure the thing doesn't stall, it doesn't hiccup, it doesn't shift hard, it doesn't shift soft. It really should drive like a stock vehicle with some more timing in it and consistent drivability. You can demand things like cam idle tunes that could affect that consistency, but really it just needs to be told to you ahead of time that that could be the case, and usually that's all right. So make sure that you're working with somebody A, that has the experience, but has the ability, B, that has the ability to support what you're doing, not just get you horsepower or maybe the ET. If that's all that's important to you, that's fine. But make sure you're working with somebody that has a system that you can go to and you can communicate with them, that doesn't have a bad rap in the community, that you have confidence working with. If you got somebody local, make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into and divulge everything to them. If they don't seem like they have the time to do it and it's not something they've done before, I'd be a little concerned about the overall result. But there are tuners out there that I have heard and from customers of mine that aren't big name tuners that have been able to get stuff done. So it's not like they don't exist. You just got to find them, and maybe the lucky draw is that the guy's only an hour away and you can take the car to him. And it's always a better feeling when you can kind of reach out and touch the person, call them, or buy them pizza, or be there for the dyno pools. Not everybody is cut out for data logging, even though the N-Gage makes it infinitely easy. If you can send an email and send a picture, or even post something on Facebook, you can do data logging with the N-Gage. That being said, we do offer Lund Racing Tuning. I'd be remiss if I don't mention those guys because they're a big reason why we've been successful with a lot of the stuff that we've done. And they're great, but they're not the only guys on the block that can get the job done. I think they're probably one of the best as far as delivering consistent tuning and consistent quality tuning, and then being in contact with their customers, which it's important, especially when we're dealing in email, because if we read an email wrong, it could be a screw you email, it could be them trying to explain something to you, and time in emails is almost like slamming the door in someone's face. You don't get back to them within 20 minutes or the predetermined time that you thought they were supposed to get back with you. So it's important to make sure you're working with somebody that can communicate with you on a regular basis, that has a big enough staff for that too. Caleb from Foxcast Media. Yeah, I think everybody would want a supercharger in their life, whether it be an Edelbrock 2650, a Gen 5 Whipple, a Gen 3 Whipple, a VMP, an Odin, a Roush, you name it. I think we all kind of want some boost in our life, in Voodoos and Coyotes and so forth. So far we've covered control packs as far as components they come with, what to be expected, what their job is in your swap, in calibration, support parts. Control pack doesn't come with everything you need. It doesn't come with an engine harness, as an example. You need to have the right engine harness for your powertrain, and that kind of changes through the generations. In Generation 1, we have 3 harnesses in the powertrain: engine, transmission, and body. Now what's tricky there is Ford Racing manual transmission or non-6R80 control pack for Gen 1 includes body and transmission. They're put into one harness that occupies 2 connectors on the PCM. But you still have to have an engine harness. Now in Gen 1, F-150 and Mustang are identical. It doesn't matter. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I got an F-150, I gotta get a Mustang harness. So I got a Mustang, you can use whichever Gen 1 harness as long as it's in good health with those control packs, and that goes for PBH control packs as well. Now, what's different about the PBH body harness is that it's strictly a body harness. We had to do that because the automatic harness for the 6R80 is its own entity and needs to stay intact. So we don't put any of the O2 stuff, starter stuff, the O2 stuff into the body harness like they did in the Ford Racing version for manual transmission. So if you're working with a PBH body harness, whether it be manual or automatic, 6R80 in this case, you need to buy a complete transmission harness. So if you're going to use it on a manual car, you still need a manual transmission harness for a Gen 1, and that also goes for the GT500 guys. Gen 2, Ford changed things. We only had 2 harnesses in the entire powertrain. Body, and then the engine and transmission were together. So there's only 2 connectors on the PCM. So that means when you buy a body harness or a control pack, in this case, buying the control pack, they're delivering you the body harness, but you got to make sure that you have the correct engine harness on the engine, because if you have one that's set up for a 6R80 transmission, it's not going to work for a manual, or you're going to have a bunch of plugs and so forth. Pinout's a little bit different. So if it's a manual transmission setup or anything other than a 6R80, you got to have a manual transmission engine harness. If it's a 6R80, get an automatic version from a 15 to 17 Mustang. F-150 and Mustang are different in Gen 2. That's why we offer our modified engine harnesses. If you change the cams in an F-150 motor to Mustang, then you need to get a Mustang engine harness with the right transmission setup. When we get to Gen 3, same thing, but Ford changed things one more time here. They went back to a 3 wiring harness setup on the powertrain: engine, transmission, and body. So they're not mixing the harnesses like they did in Gen 1, but they are supplying supplemental harnesses in the prospective control pack. So they kind of built it like we did for Gen 1, and they just give you a separate harness pack, whether it's for a manual or a 10R80. Once you have all the right supporting parts and you're using factory harnesses, things really should be plug and play. We have a celebrity guest here in the chat, Alejandro Flores, a big supporter of Power by the Hour, and likewise us of him, has posted a question. Will your race car get boosted? The tune is free. I wouldn't mind boosting it. I've never owned a boosted car. I think I've only driven a few customer cars. I've only driven 2 boosted cars in anger on a track. One at Sebring, one at the drag strip. The drag car was a car owned by John Edgerly. It was a 427R that had gotten I think it was a Livernoise engine, ProCharger, 4R70W swap that we did. I drove it, and I thought I was going to fly off. I thought I was going to set a world record that night. Sure enough, we look at the logs. As soon as I got to half track, I started lifting my foot off the gas. So I don't know what happened there. The other car that I drove that's boosted was a GT500 at Sebring, and it was owned by a gentleman in the Palm Beach Mustang Club, which I was president of at the time, and I was an instructor for SVTOA with track guys, and he wanted me to drive his car, and I had been instructing him all day. I go to switch out with him. I hop in the driver's seat, and he gets out of the car, and he just closes the door. He goes, you know what? I'd rather just stand up here in the stands and watch my car go around. Mind you, this is day 2 on the track. And I go out there, and all the guys that were in that group knew his black GT500, and they were getting pass signals from him. And now all of a sudden the tables have turned because Frank was behind the wheel, and I know my way around Sebring. And in 2 laps, I managed to roast the brake fluid and bust all his sway bar bushings. Needless to say, I felt terrible about it. I helped him bleed the brakes and limp it home because he had a 2.5-hour ride home like I did. But those are the only 2 boosted cars I've ever driven in anger. So I don't know what I would do in my Fox that weighs almost nothing. And knowing how much power Coyotes make with 10 or 11 pounds of boost on 93 octane, it's going to be a hell of a ride. I don't know how controllable it will be. I only have 275-inch 275s on it all the way around. I'd probably have to make the investment to go to 315s. That's a big investment. So Uh, I would love to do it. I'd love to prove it that it can be done. I think autocross is the perfect outlet for something like that because you kind of want instant power. So a nice 2650 Gen 3 Whipple, Gen 5 Whipple would kick ass on my car. It would just be an adjustment period, and I think there's still plenty left in the car right now. So, but thank you for asking, Alex, and I appreciate you tuning my car, and it runs great. Let's see here, Caleb. The difference between truck and Mustang, Gen 2 and Gen 3, are still so much of a mystery internally. Yeah, we can look at the F-150s and what they're doing boosted in stock applications, and we can generalize that they probably have the same robust rods and pistons. I know the compression ratios are different, but there's plenty of boosted stock Gen 2 F-150s out there that are running strong. I know Alex has pointed out a few of them to us at Lund Racing Tunes. Christian's brother-in-law has one that runs really, really strong, and we've tuned a few of them here. There's a gentleman by the name of Chris Brooks. His son works over at Lethal Performance. He's got a whomper of an F-150. I think it's Gen 2. And I want to say it's a Roush blower on there. And that car, I want to say it was in the 11s. I mean, it was making some steam. It was hard to really gauge on the dyno because he's got 22s on it. But it's making all the steam that it should to get down the track. So I don't really see that the F-150s are that much weaker in Gen 2. I know in Gen 1, it seemed like they were really on the weaker side. But, you know, Gen 1 motors in general really aren't the big behemoths when it comes to boost. 10 pounds of boost, you're kind of done. You need to start looking at illuminator motors or rotating assemblies and stuff like that. Gen 3 seemingly is the same thing as the Gen 2. I think they do cross over some of the more robust components. And subsequently, those engines are available for us to put into our cars and take advantage of at an economic price. We are making some headway on what it takes to get the F-150 Gen 3 engine to work with the control pack from Ford Racing. So hopefully we'll have some more information on that soon enough. Let's get to some of these other comments here. F-150, S550. Frank, I'm going to call you Pancho. What's up, bud? I still haven't merged the two OBD2 connectors. So yeah, we're talking about that last week, about merging OBD2 connectors and trying to get gauges to work and stuff like that to work. Please let us know how that works out. I'd be interested to see what happens there. I've never tried to, merge them. Mr. High Maintenance in the house. Alejandro, yeah, wild chicken, you're right. High maintenance, but good guy. Let's see what else we got. Root beer. I think the difference is primarily cams and intake. Can be completely wrong. Yeah, I think the cams and intake are the big difference between the Gen 2 F-150 and Mustang. Same with Gen 3. It'd be nice if we could just come out with a small solution where you don't have to change all that stuff if you're using kind of more economic option, which is the used F-150 powertrain. We can avoid having to buy all these components and go in there and retime it. Timing it can be done properly and still come out like shit. Unfortunately, it's happened to us. It's jumped the tooth on startup, that kind of stuff. If you can avoid having to retime a Coyote engine, you avoid having that heartbreak of it not starting or having that lengthy start where you just realized you wasted 20 hours of your life timing it and going through all that stuff, and you got to take it all apart. Let's see here. Reese Savage, beefy, valuable information. Thanks a lot. Well, am I the beefy one there, or it's just the information is robust? Terry Scott, differences between Coyote and Roadrunner, and how can you tell? Well, from the outside, Roadrunner, obviously the intake manifold. The wiring harness also is a tell if you don't have an intake manifold on there. Boss 302s had the evap sensor back on the driver's side, rear of the engine. There's a connector there. That would be a tell if it's a Roadrunner engine. You can tell by the camshafts, but you're going to have to take the valve covers off and look at some ID numbers and so forth to really know if it's a Roadrunner engine or not. They really didn't have a different exhaust manifold setup. Oil pans, I believe, were the same as well. Aesthetically, other than those few things, they look the same. How they perform is different. The Roadrunner engine definitely outperformed the Gen 1 GT engine, but when it came to Gen 2, they packed a lot of the stuff they put in the Boss 302 engine in the stock GT engine. So if you're keying in on having a Boss 302 engine, just know that a Gen 2 GT Mustang engine packs a lot of the same upgrades that a Boss engine would supply you in Gen 1. Let's see here. Yeah, because the Roadrunners have better rods and pistons. They're better balanced than Ford applied all that stuff. Let's see. Yeah, Gen 1 block is fine. Rods, not so much. Yeah, they're definitely on the weaker side. You can still, 650 horsepower. That on pump gas with the oil pump gear and sprocket, unless you're trying to kill the thing every time you drive it, it should be okay if it's tuned right and you got good fuel. You're not knocking. You're not beating the hell out of it. I see that Oscars, Resto, and Mod. Hello. Oscar is a really good customer of ours. Oscar is actually in Mexico. The guy's doing Coyote swaps south of the border. He's doing a bunch of them. We've helped him with a slew of different cars that are being built down there, trucks as well. And I want to thank him for hopping on here and posting up and supporting PBH as well. He's a good dude. If any of you, for any reason, are in Mexico and need a good mechanic, a good tech, look him up. Even if you want to send your stuff across the border to get done, he's not a bad option. He definitely knows how to do it. So, and with our help, he can definitely knock it out for you. Kevin Jones, I read old posts about 4R200 pump seal leaks, but don't really see any new posts like that. Was that an early issue that was resolved? The pump seal leaking on the 6R80, it wasn't related to the 4R200 hub. The 4R200 hub, it does not add any stress inside the transmission. It relieves it. You're getting rid of a forward planetary that's spinning upwards of 19,000 RPM in the transmission. You're getting that out of the way, and it's just basically coupling two assemblies together. We have seen the pump failures and front seal leaks on a multitude of different applications, and we were looking at the pumps themselves, because really what was happening is there's a seal on both sides of the pump, and we would see that one seal would blow out, and when it blew out, it would mar up that shaft, and you'd lose all pressure basically when that seal pops out. We did switch to a little bit of an upgraded seal on our rebuilds. We didn't really see that it was a lights out fix all. It kind of seemed like it was more related to the condition of the pump. Ford did make a change in the pumps themselves between Gen 1 and Gen 2, bearing wise. And the Gen 2 ones are a little bit better. So that's something to consider as well. I really don't know that there's ever been a smoking gun related to the pump seal failure on the 6R80, whether it has a 4R200 hub or not. We've experienced the failure, but we've experienced it 6R80 and 4R200. And, on completely different setups. Positive displacement versus turbo in both cases. So it's not related to the 4R200 hub in particular, but it is related to those two seals that are inside the pump, basically the pump shaft, as it's distributing fluid. So definitely check those things, change them every time you have the transmission open. Make sure you got fresh ones in there. And if you see any type of marring happening in that area, you get a new pump. Let's see here. Gen 2 body harness timeline, Barry Farmer. We don't have anything in the direct works. It is something we want to do, but we got to tackle these 3-valve harnesses first. Believe me, we want to turn the switch on and all this stuff and have it here available to you guys, but it's just not something we have at the top of the list right now, but it will come. Parker's 89, number 173. I think that's Parker Go Lightly. If you guys don't know who Parker is, Parker's one of the guys. He might be the guy that started Coyote Swap Fox Bodies on Facebook. It's got over 20,000 members now. It's renowned for the amount of tech-heavy information that's in there for guys that don't even have Fox Bodies. They're just doing Coyote swaps. I'm a regular on there. I'm an admin on there as well. I've been part of the group and helped a ton of guys through there. Met a lot of our customers through there. And Parker has a beautiful Celine hatchback, red. He's in Texas. He's had some bad luck, unfortunately, in trying to finish the car with stuff outside of the vehicle itself. But it sounds like he's on the road to recovery. He's switching it over from a manual to a 6R80. It is Roush or VMP supercharged, as I remember. It's got our speed drive on there. It's going to have our wiring in there as well. And also, Parker's a great guy. We need to get that car finished and get it to Foxtoberfest or one of the other Ford events, man, so everybody can enjoy it. I have a very special hood on my car from from Tiger Racing Chicane 23 that was slated for Parker's car, and I didn't even really know it, and I think I kind of swept it out from underneath him. And I always feel bad about that until I look at my car and see how great that hood looks on it. But Parker Rex, thanks for all the info, Frank. I've been MIA for a while, but slowly trying to get moving again. Yes, we need to get you done, man. Mustang week, something like that. We're going to all meet up and drink some beers and drive our cars and have a good time. That's really the goal, man. Janssen 50, do you have any used Gen 1 Mustang intake cams? We don't. At one point we had a bunch of stuff like that, but we've gone through it all. Some of the stuff got rusted, got thrown out, and so forth. I would definitely look in the Coyote swap Fox bodies, see if there's any classified stuff like that. There's a lot of Coyote swap groups on Facebook, a lot of information and parts changing hands. So go through all of them, even if it's not for your car. There's one for New Edge, SN95. There's classic Mustang. There's an F100 version. There's all sorts of stuff out there. So a lot of guys with Coyote swaps going on. Who knows what they got laying in the corner. Let's see here. Root Beer asks, since you do a lot of road course stuff, Frank, would comp stage 3 cams be worth it? Want to stay NA, but want more power. I have the GT350 intake and a tune on the car now, 17 GT. Yeah, it's going to be beneficial to you. It's going to rob torque and replace it with high RPM horsepower. Is that a universal positive? Not really. I think it depends on what kind of tracks you're running at. Sebring, for example, there's parts of that track where we have room to really stretch the legs on the car. There's parts of that track we want low-end grunt, the hairpin. Some of the slower turns, turn 10, tower turn. Getting onto those long straightaways is important as well. For the amount of money that cams cost, and the fact that when you install cams in a Coyote, there's no guarantee it's going to sound like you have cams. It's hard for me to say it's a lights out, yes, do it, you're going to love it modification. It adds 20 to 30 horsepower up top. It robs 20 or 30 foot-pounds of torque down low. It depends on your setup. If you're boosted, it makes sense to do it, especially if you have a positive displacement blower, because that low-end punch that you're losing from the cams, you're gaining right back from the nature of that supercharger. And then you're letting it sing up top, where it needs probably the most help to make sure that it's making power and it's doing it efficiently. In a boosted application, those camshafts can also lower the amount of boost it takes to make the power that you're making. So it makes overall everything more efficient, but it does change the nature of the torque curve and the horsepower. So keep that all in mind when you're spending $1,600 on camshafts, 10 to 12 hours to install them. You might as well do oil pump gears and sprocket while you're in there. Tearing down the whole front end of the car to get them installed. Those end results, you got to really mark off the pros and the cons and what it's going to deliver to you, because it's an investment you're making into the car and what you're doing, and it's an expensive one. So make sure you do your homework on it, ask some people like you're doing here tonight, and kind of weigh those positives. If you're trying to make as much power as possible, period, NA, cams, you got to do it, because it's 30 horsepower NA. It's worth it in that sense. And you can still use them if you boost the car down the road. So it's not a one-way street, per se. Intake and exhaust valves are different. F-150 Mustang can send you. Okay, yeah. Most likely things are going to be a little bit different, like the valve train. Valve springs, I've heard, are a little bit different. It's designed for more of a fleet use in an F-150. They're looking for longevity over a lot of other things. We're in a Mustang. They got to appeal to us with horsepower, so they're going to give us better components and make sure they don't blow up within that 36,000 mile warranty bumper to bumper, because they don't want to keep buying new engines. And that's why they don't want to see that you're tuning them either. Let's see here. Bullet Hole Bronco, can you talk about using a GPS speedometer on a swap versus other options and the ability to raise idle when AC is on with vintage air AC unit? It's a very good question. Hold on a second. So, a GPS speedometer, hold on a second, is beneficial over a transmission-based OSS in the sense that you don't really have to convert your pulse per minute or pulse per mile to then get your gauge to read properly. GPS does not care about tire size. It does not care about gearing. You can change tires, you can change gearing, and not have to worry about that stuff, especially in a manual transmission combination. If it's a 6R80 or a 10R80, any change you make to gearing or tire size may play a factor in how the transmission shifts. So, for pure telemetry reasons, GPS has an advantage there that it doesn't factor in or play a factor in how the vehicle drives. It makes owning the vehicle and getting up and down the road that much easier, because if you do have two different tire sizes, you don't want to hop in and have to remember that, oh yeah, the speedometer's off because I got my drag radials on or I got my street tires on. That being said, GPS, depending on installation, sometimes can be spotty. In certain areas, you may not have contact with satellites, just like we have dead zones for cell phones and so forth. They do sell, I know Dakota Digital in particular has extension antennas that you can run from their GPS antenna and put it somewhere on the windshield or on the car to ensure that you have a really, really strong signal. That's ultra important if you're running an aftermarket cruise control as well, because the cruise control really relies on a strong signal to maintain its speed. So that's what I would say about the GPS versus the OSS-based stuff. Now, as far as idle with AC, calibration can affect that. It can put base idle high enough where it's not going to affect the way the vehicle idles or takes that load of the AC compressor turning on. There really isn't much you can do to control it like a factory setup, because again, Ford gets rid of a lot of the logic in the Coyote swap control pack computers, and it may not even be there to play with as far as AC controls. Additionally, AC controls in a factory car are CAN bus based. That's why you see all of a sudden in Gen 2, Ford Performance delivered you AC relay and so forth, but in a lot of cases you can't reuse that stuff because you don't have the AC control panel in your Fox body or in your F100. Now you can try to install that stuff, but then to use it, you need the body control module too, and that's not part of the body harness. So all they're giving you there is a relay that you can rewire to work for your AC compressor to turn on, but it's not going to trigger anything in the computer to then bump the idle. We don't have an IAC on these. Everything is done with throttle position. It's done with timing and fueling to control our idle. So if you have a vehicle that has AC, make sure that your calibrator, your tuner, knows about that. And you want to send them data logs in the calibration, or they should be doing it as well, or requesting it with or without the AC on. Now, if Alex is still in here, he could probably chime in on that a little bit more, but I know a lot of the guys that we've worked with don't have an issue in particular there. The bigger issue they have is turning off the AC compressor when you go wide open throttle. Because if the AC compressor is on and you're driving and all of a sudden you decide to floor it on the highway and downshift, that AC compressor really shouldn't be engaged. It could lead to damaged AC compressors. It could lead to thrown belts. A couple different things could come into play there. So one of the things that we've been talking about, and one of the things that we're actually developing here soon, is the CAN bus ability to pluck the wide open throttle signal out of your computer and give you a ground trigger for a relay to shut the compressor off. Additionally, using that same technology to, let's say, give you a ground trigger for reverse lights or a check engine light. Those things are more the finite touches to make sure your Coyote swap is complete and easy to drive, and it's one less thing to worry about when you're driving. But it's not there yet. We're working on it. We've actually been inquiring and working on that for a little bit over 3 years now, and we're the closest we've ever been to getting it right. And it's going to be part of the 3-valve stuff as we release that, and then hopefully it becomes something that we can offer to all of our Gen 1 guys, and then try to reproduce that stuff for Gen 2 and Gen 3 guys as well. Really good question there. Hope I answered it for you, or Bullet Hole Bronco. Miguel Marin, thanks for joining us, man. Kevin Jones, what's going on, brother? Parker, you're welcome. Again, hope to see your car done, man. Anything you need, email me, hit me up. I'll be more than happy to help you out with that. Let's see here. Notch set. Putting a Gen 2 F-150 6R80 in my Fox using Flowtech turbo headers. They are running into the oil filter adapter. Can I swap it for the Mustang adapter, or is there any other option to relocate? Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about Gen 2. Canton makes a really trick oil filter for a remote oil filter, the adapter on the block to give you the 1/2-inch MPT ports. It works on Gen 1 and Gen 2, not Gen 3 from what I understand. That'll allow you to put a remote oil filter housing. It doesn't have to be really, really fancy. I think I have one of the fanciest remote filter housings in the world. It's from Clearview Filtration. It's literally got a window and a pre-screen. You can put air into it and blow all the air out and see your filter without taking your oil filter off, and see if you have any contaminants, dirt, aluminum, metal, rag, anything in there. But it doesn't have to be that. You can get oil filter, remote oil filter housings for $60-$70 on the cheap end. Really nice ones from Canton, $150. The Clearview Filtration stuff is like $300. So I think that's going to be your best option, especially if you're doing turbo, because space is going to be at a premium in the engine bay overall, whether it be for wastegates, hot side, cold side, intercoolers, rerouting other things to make room for it. So if you can clear up any space down, below, underneath, make it easy to get to for servicing, there's a lot of reasons why you'd want to relocate that oil filter. The only thing that's a caveat there is the quality of the installation is going to be up to whoever's doing it. If it's you want to make sure you're using really good oil lines. If you use push lock, make sure you get the safety clips for it as well. Don't ask me how I know, but they will blow off the fitting. That happened to me at Sebring. I almost burned my car to the ground. I was top of third gear going into fourth. I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw a trail of smoke. I looked through looked on the passenger side, the driver's side mirror, and I saw flames coming out underneath the door right near my head. And sure enough, I had a remote oil filter housing. I'd used push lock hoses for the first time. They got hot. Heat is one of the ways that allows you to soften it up to install it. I never put the safety clamps on it, and it just blew right off the fitting, sprayed oil all over the engine bay, got on the hot headers, lit up on fire, and almost burned my car to the ground. And it's not the reason why they call me Fire Suit Frank. I was called Fire Suit Frank before that, but that was the day that the legend was solidified. So yeah, if you're doing a remote oil filter housing, like anything, use quality components. Make sure you get really good lines. They don't have to be steel braided. There's really good lines out there. They're more of a nylon shield on them and so forth, but steel braided is an option. Steel braided lines are always a little bit tricky because simple stuff like if you have a bad ground and that steel braided line's attached to the engine and it touches your apron, now you're arcing on an oil line or a fuel line and so forth. Plus they can rub through a lot of different things if you're not careful. So keep all that stuff in mind when you're trying to pick those things out. And if there's any heat near those lines, make sure you shield it and protect it properly. But if you're trying to find something as far as an option on the engine, you could use a Mustang version. I want to say that the oil filter ends up in around the same area as the F-150, depending on whether you have the oil cooler or not. All right. Okay, chicken root beer. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're welcome, root beer. No problem at all, man. 2000 MCR. I don't know your real name, but thank you for joining us. Bullet Hole Bronco, you're welcome. That was a really good question. A lot of guys don't really cover that. It's one of the more finite things as far as a swap, and it's not something everybody thinks about. It's not top priority when they're building. Terry Scott, home cut Franken pallet or Ford control pack. I would definitely lean towards a control pack. Here's the thing with, and we've covered this in other episodes and other videos and so forth. When you get custom wiring, especially when you're dealing with the immense amount of wiring in a factory harness, everything that you modify is a potential issue when something goes wrong. So if you cut it up yourself or have somebody do it, it's all loomed up, you put it in the car, and then all of a sudden you start the vehicle and something's awry, something's not right, then everything that's been modified has to be a potential issue. And there's a lot of potential issues when it comes to wiring. So you really start diagnosing and trying to do pinpoint tests and all that stuff. Whereas in a control pack, it's manufactured. In our body harness, it's a manufactured. The quality is easily replicated and duplicated. So there's consistency in what you're using. And if you're like me, I'm not a wizard when it comes to wiring. I'm not somebody who really knows how to diagnose every little thing. So the less potential issues, the less variables I have in this equation that we call our Coyote swap, the better it is for me. Can I save a few bucks by trying to thin it out myself? Maybe. Every time we've tried to do it, it takes us 20 to 30 hours to do it at 112 bucks an hour. That's not saving anyone money. If you own a shop, if you have your A-Tech on that job because it's very important, you're not going to be saving any money. It's going to take 100 hours to do a Coyote swap on the quick side using a control pack. Adding 30 hours to that and then question marks as far as if it's right doesn't sound efficient to me. But to each his own. If you want to tackle it and you want to do it, just keep those things in mind as you're building it, because you may not want to loom the whole damn thing up just in case something's awry and you need to get back into it. Let's see here. Good evening. I have a great question. Gen 3 F-150 control pack, is that a thing? And could you put a Gen 3 Coyote with a 6R80 behind it? You're not going to be able to mix 6R80 and 10R80 with control packs, with computers in general. So a Gen 3 engine with a 6R80 behind it probably isn't going to be a thing unless you're using the standalone controller for the 6R80, and vice versa. A Gen 2 computer that will run that 6R80 and a Coyote isn't going to have the logic in it then to run DI pumps and the timing and everything that's in a Gen 3. So that's not going to be a thing. As far as control packs for Gen 3 F-150, 10R80 combos, or even with any other transmission, there's a good chance that's going to be a thing, but it's going to be something where you're buying the control pack for your said combination with Gen 3, and then buying or modifying what we see as needed to make it work. What's also going to play a factor in that is if you're going to change the camshafts or not. Because if you change the camshafts and the components to switch it over to a Mustang engine, then you're going to be using Mustang wiring to round it all out. And for all intents and purposes, the computer doesn't know it's an F-150 long block underneath there. So it can be done. It's a little expensive, I think, and labor intensive to do it that way, but hopefully we have solutions that are going to fix that for us in the future. Kevin Jones, are there any cooling upgrades you would recommend for a built max effort 6R84 R200? I wouldn't. I've seen guys are bypassing the internal thermostat that's in the transmission. We've never seen a reason to do that. Just like an engine, the transmission has a operating temperature that you should be targeting, and it kind of mirrors the engine's temperature. You want it to operate in that 190 to 210 range. 230 is overheating as far as the 6R80 goes. So you need to really concentrate on just having a cooler. It doesn't have to be our cooler. It doesn't have to be a fan cooler. It could be a stock one. It could be any derivative of that, but you need to make sure it's getting proper airflow. It's not near a heat source. I've seen guys mount them underneath their trunk of an S197 car. That's fine, but it's really close to the floorboard. So if the fan's underneath the core and then the floor's 2 inches away, how much flow is it really producing and doing? So you want to kind of angle it, make sure it's chambered, make sure it's getting a good fresh airflow that will keep it from being a problem. If you are experiencing a transmission that's getting hot regularly, keep in mind that there are other factors that can play into that. Slip creates heat. Friction creates heat. Torque converters, if they're failing, can create heat. If you don't have the right fluid level in the transmission, can create heat. And all those things are sensitive in a 6R80. So keep that in mind as well. If you're battling something like that, a 4R200 and a 6R80, depending on setup, neither of the two are going to run cooler than the other. They're essentially the same transmission. We just don't have 4 and 5 in the 4R200 version. Root Beer, thanks for the info you give us each week. Here's a little something for the HMB fund. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate that. That's definitely going to help us. We have a new computer arriving tomorrow. Right now, I'm doing all these from my Google Pixel 4. It's working just fine, but the hopes are that with the new camera, with the new computer, we can start using our DSLR camera, get you a lot better audio, get you better quality video, and also different production quality, be able to show diagrams and pictures of components, stuff that we're talking about as part of the broadcast instead of it just being my beautiful little face here. I think studio-wise, we're probably going to be working with this for a while until something else drastic happens space-wise and so forth. But this does the trick. I think once we have that new computer and I get things and I'm comfortable with it, we'll be able to do a lot more interactive things as far as the broadcast and covering tech stuff. Like I said, diagrams. Here today we're talking about control packs. It'd be nice to show what a control pack is, part numbers, stuff on our website, that kind of thing. So yes, thank you. All that stuff definitely helps us. Let's see here. Matthew Plavidal. Hey Frank, thanks for the info as always, Matt. I think I mentioned you before on the broadcast, but Matt has that beautiful Calypso coupe that's Coyote swapped those at Foxtoberfest last year in our booth. Car's amazing. Matt's a really great guy. We have a video on our YouTube channel about the build where he tells you everything about it, and it's a really cool, really cool, clean coupe. Not really overstated, just how I like it. So it's really good. Bullet Hole Bronco, are you guys using SelectShift in their swaps? How difficult is it to make it work? It's really not hard to make SelectShift work. It's a factory function. In our Gen 1 6R80 control pack, in our body harness, we give you the wiring for SelectShift. It's very easy to wire up. All you need is 2 momentary buttons. That's why you see our rocker switch as an option, but really just 2 momentary contacts. Any 2 momentary contacts can be used. There's 3 wires, a common, a shift up, and a shift down. That's the same thing that's in a factory shifter. So the factory shifter just has a positive and negative on the side, but what always makes that work is the fact that you put the shifter in sport mode. Once you're in sport mode, it's going to be shifting in a different logic, more of like an overdrive off, more aggressive, but it's going to shift automatically until you hit either positive or negative, and then you're in control. Once you're in control, if you're done playing with it and using it, just put it back into drive, and it takes back over, and you can put it back into sport and start using it again. Gen 2 Ford Racing Control Pack for the 6R80 does not include the wiring for SelectShift, but the computer has it in its logic. So if you look on our website, under our engine management section, we do have a pinout kit that comes with the 3 pins you need to put into the factory connector, and then from there you're going to wire it to your switch, whichever one you choose to use, whether it be paddles, rocker switches, 2 individual horn buttons, old cruise control buttons, a low car shifter, anything along those lines can be used. The low car shifter, if you're going to look at something like that, I know a lot of the Bronco guys like that. There's a lot of nice options there. They have different size shank, different shift knobs with single bend or bench bend. What they do is they give you 3 switches on their assembly. Only 2 of them are used when you're using a stock computer to control your powertrain. So control pack, power by the hour control pack, donor vehicles. You're only going to be using the ones for the forward and the reverse. The one at the top is not used at all because that's designed to trigger that you've gone into that bump stick mode, and the computer in a factory setup doesn't need to know that. It just needs to know that it's in sport mode and it's ready. You close the contact, game on. You're done, you put it back in drive, and you keep driving. So yes, in those applications, and the same thing applies for Gen 3, 10 or 80 as well. Jason Freeberg, thanks for the info, Frank. Here's a little something to help support the channel. Thank you very much. It all goes right back into it, and it definitely helps us keep this thing going. Here's a few bones. This is Mr. Nitro. Here's a few bones. Since you drink beer and Alex doesn't, thanks for the content. Yes, I will drink all Alex's beer. Sometimes he has some left over from his dates. We did get him to take a sip of an old-fashioned once. Probably not the best drink for a non-drinker to try. It's a little bit of a hard drink, but he did sip it. And he tried some, what was it? Pecan-infused whiskey that we had out one night. That I think he liked it, but, you know, to each his own. He doesn't partake in the stuff. I recently, there's Wynwood Brewery down here in Miami. They got a drink called Father Francisco. I think it's a Belgian golden ale, 9.3, available at Total Wine. Check that one out as a Florida export. Let's see here. Terry Scott, thanks for the great info. Your knowledge is amazing. You're welcome. Thank you, Terry, for joining us and being on the broadcast. But all the participation. I think we saw over 50 people tonight. That's a new record for us. It's humbling for us because we're just enthusiasts, man. We're guys just like you guys are on the other end of this right now. We've all, as far as the staff, have been there as well, looking for information. How do you do it right? You guys know what to do. How do I get the right information? That's why we want to try to broadcast it to everybody. Let's see here. How long until the Gen 3 F-150 control pack comes out? Right now, we don't know for sure. We have one in the works for Mr. Gumby Saunders out of Texas. He's going to be our mule to test this thing out. If it works well for him, we'll probably vet it on a couple other people, and then we'll say, hey, this is what it needs, and these are the part numbers and what you need to get it done. 2000 MCR oil pump gears, crank sprocket. What brand does PBH recommend? We have used consistently Triangle Speed Shop, Livernois. Those two have never failed us, never given us issues. There are other brands out there, and budget is always king. I would think that with what goes into making our aluminum brackets to make sure they're right, something like an oil pump gear, most likely it's not a situation where somebody's making them for $5 and just decides to charge you $500. They're probably charging that much because whatever the process they're using is expensive to make sure it's right. And also, they probably back their product as well. So keep that in mind. In Spanish, we have a saying that lo barato sale caro. What that means is that if it's cheap, it'll end up being expensive. It's sound advice. So keep that in mind when you're budgeting for parts. The oil pump, well, everything you do, the oil pump's going to be vital. So it may not be the area to try to skimp some money on. Let's see here. Kevin Jones, thanks, Frank. No problems currently. Just staying on top of things before any problems arise. Okay, no problem at all, brother. A White Claw guy. I drink White Claw. Truly. It's good stuff. Does the trick on a sunny day. Caleb chiming in again. Love these live streams. Keep them coming, Frank. Thank you, man. I know I've been on your podcast once before. I've been on your channel. Hopefully we'll be able to do some more of that stuff in the future. I know this whole COVID-19 thing's kind of derailed a lot of people's plans. But again, there's some events that are far enough in the future that we may be able to hit after all this clears up and we turn the country back on and people are safe and you can congregate again. And when we go out to the track, sounds like the tracks are opening up, whether it's time or not, wherever your opinion is on it. Sounds like they're opening up as a business. to get the wheels rolling again. We lose enough drag strips and tracks every year that we can't really afford to lose more of them. So let's see here. TSS for the win. Don't go cheap. I agree. Try to buy quality parts every step of the way. I think at the end of the day, it's just going to make your life a lot easier and the quality of your build that much better. Buy once, cry once. Yeah, that's another way of looking at it. Well, we've hit our hour mark. If you guys have any questions, anything that we didn't cover in the chat tonight, make sure you email me or post it up in the comments to this video. I'll be there to try to get you as much information as possible and try to get your tech questions answered, product questions answered. We're working every day to try to develop more content, more information for everybody, high quality product, good instructions. Things like that mean the world to installers, to people building stuff in their driveway, in their garages, in their annexes. So we know that. We try to deliver that with every product that we use and come out with. As an example, we came out with a cold air kit. There were some concerns about the placement of mass air. We looked into it and addressed it, and probably in the next week or two, we'll be releasing a whole new cold air kit for everybody. We've reached out to all the customers that were waiting on one and getting them the new version, and I think it's going to be pretty trick. I'm looking forward to getting it here, doing a video on it, getting some pictures of it. It's going to be a no tune required, but with the option of a tune required combination. It's going to be black, blue filter. It's going to be a name brand mass air housing, and I think it's going to be pretty universal for everybody to use, whether you want to put the air filter on the driver's side or passenger side, whether it's a Fox Body F100, an airboat, whatever. So check that out as well. That's stuff that we always strive to do. Being who we are and being a small company, we can shift to a lot of the needs and wants out there for you guys and get you a quality product still. So there's a lot in the pipeline. We'll keep you updated on it as much as possible. Caleb, I need one. Well, we all need upgraded and better parts. Just let me know what you're looking for. We'll get you hooked up, man. But thank you again for joining us tonight in the chat. If you have any questions, post up, email me, info@pbhperformance.com. I have been getting the emails from guys from the live stream and trying to get you as much information as possible. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Hit the subscription button, or subscribe button, hit the notification button, hit all. Make sure you don't miss any of the content that we come out with. Every Wednesday night, we're going to be on here at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And then we might do some other live streams here and there, depending if we're at an event or something like that, where we want to show you something that's going on that wasn't really planned. I don't want you to miss that stuff. So make sure you let us know and subscribe. I think we're right at 3,000 subscribers, which is a hurdle for us. I think we started off with 1,000 towards the tail end of last year, and with a lot of the videos that we've come out with and these live streams, we're already jumping to 3,000. And hopefully that'll just keep growing, and we can get the message out to more and more of us that are doing Coyote swaps and really help everybody with their builds at whatever level they're doing it at. So thank you again, everybody, tonight. Christian, go to bed. I need some simulator time. Make sure we set that up. And thank you again for everybody for joining us tonight. I got to get home and kind of rest. We got a big day tomorrow, shooting pictures and setting things up for the instructions for the Whipple Gen 5 speed drive. And we got a new computer coming in, so we'll set that up as well. So thanks again for joining us tonight, guys. Good night. Be safe out there. Finish your projects. If they're finished, go drive them. Don't neglect them at this time. Just keep driving them. Let everybody hear that Coyote in your neighborhood. So have a good night, guys. We'll see you next week, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. See you then.